Hey everybody, it's Margot.
Guys, I'm such a fucking actress.
And Lydia.
Strong black woman over here.
But you already know why we're here.
Pop off, sis.
I went commando on public transportation, huh?
Oh my god.
I love a good lazy river because I'm lazy and I like water.
Pop off, sis.
Guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of hungover right now.
The content you may not want but deserve.
Pop off.
I think I popped off about that.
You popped off.
Pop off, sis!
Hi everyone, welcome back to Pop Off Sis. How is everyone? What are you up to? What are you doing? You can't respond, but hello. We want to just jump right in because we got a lot to get to. My rose, very simple, but we talked about the foot last episode, and your girl is driving again. Vroom, vroom, watch out. I am back on the road.
Woo!
May or may not have gotten approval from the doctor, but it's fine. It's been a month. It's fine. It's fine. It's a good workout for the foot.
My rose this week is that after rearranging my room like a month and a half ago, telling myself I was going to build a self-tape studio and then never doing anything, I finally got all of my shit and I have a little self-tape studio in my room. Very low budget, not very professional, but the best I can do right now, and I'm very excited, and I made a really extra Instagram video about it, and it had me feeling myself on that Friday morning, so all is well on that front.
I love that. You're in your room.
Lighting up and popping it, huh? Oh yeah.
No, I'm not saying that. That is so cool. You're having like a whole little professional studio at home. That's awesome. We got our new segment, What's Poppin' This Week. What is poppin' this week? Okay. I mean, I can't not address it because if I don't address it, who are we? What are we doing here? 2 words, actually 3. Kamala Debbie Harris. Our vice presidential candidate for the Biden ticket is Kamala Harris, as we all know at this point. Woo! That is popping this week. Very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Making.
Another thing that's happening this week is Miley Cyrus dropped a new song and a new iconic music video to be paired with it for Midnight Sky. I don't know if you've watched it yet, but you should, and I have so many Halloween costume ideas just based off of that video. It is iconic. It is a bit of a throwback to Miley circa Wrecking Ball era, which I feel like it was really kind of the real Miley, like that was more true to who she was. So I feel like she's back in her roots and she's feeling good, and you can totally tell, and this new song and music video reflects it. So go listen and go watch it because it is spicy.
Just really quick, there's this whole rumor going around that the US might ban TikTok, and I'm not here for it. I am a full TikToker over here. Okay, I just lurk. I don't actually do them, but that is not popping this week, okay? Somebody needs to figure this out because that's like one of the best things of quarantine is being on TikTok. So just saying, that happens, we're gonna have some issues. Okay.
How else am I gonna waste away like 5 hours of my day?
Right. You cannot just go on TikTok and look at one. If you do that, like, you're suspicious. Like, that's not a thing. Like, okay, but this week, tell them, Margot, what's happening? Who do we have coming on today?
I could not be more excited because this week, not only is it a guest episode, but it is a follow-up guest episode. It is What the People Want. I would like to welcome back the one, the only Lucy Taylor.
Welcome back.
Hello.
What is going on? How are you?
I'm good, just chilling in my room in New York.
We love the mic. We love the New York.
Yeah.
And we're ready to jump into talking about this amazing, amazing thing that you have produced, that you
Yeah.
have birthed into the world. The last time we saw
My
you on this
baby.
podcast, it's your baby.
It's literally
We're
my
fresh.
baby, my
You were
child.
you were in labor the last time we had you on this podcast.
Literally, I
No.
was.
Now it's been birthed, snapped, the podcast is in the world. OMG. How are you feeling? Tell us about, for those that
Yeah.
haven't listened, give us a little summary.
All right. So, in my podcast, Snapped, I take you with me on a trip down memory lane and share what it was like to be in a top tier sorority and go through a lot of unfortunate events within this sorority and end up disaffiliating, moving out of the house mid-semester. Lots and lots of shit goes down. Shit goes down after I move out. Shit just keeps going down. Like, you think the shit's gonna stop, but then it keeps going down. And it's definitely an expose into sorority world. And just go listen. I can't really explain it more, but you'll hear me explain every single step of the way on the podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can go to @SnapThePodcast on Instagram, go to the link in the bio, and you'll find all the links right there.
A little precursor to this conversation, if you haven't listened yet, there will probably be some spoilers. So in order to fully understand this conversation and to fully love it and feel like you're in on what we're talking about, go listen to the entire series first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have so many questions. The first
Me too.
being like, what, like, how does it feel to finally have this project out in the world that you've worked on for so long, that not only did you work on, you experienced every single thing that you talked about. So
Right.
how does it feel to have it out there?
It feels really, really freeing. It's just like, I just feel like I had it all. I knew that it could be something, and then to see it like in its final product is just so exciting and relieving and cathartic. Is that that works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it feels beautiful. It feels beautiful to have people relate so much and to hear how much it's helped people with their own experiences, whether in a sorority or not, just in general. Yeah, all positive emotions. I don't feel anything negative about it being out there. I think, though, if I had released this 2 years ago or even a year ago, before I was fully healed, I mean, like, I don't know if you're ever fully healed. It's going to affect you forever. But in a place where I feel like mostly healed, I think that I released it at a great time. And I think that if I had released it maybe a year or two ago, I wouldn't feel this way. I think that I still would have, I don't know, not been too good about it. And also, having graduated now, I think it's awesome because I don't have to like be on campus. That would have given me some anxiety, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel awesome.
That's great. And I think that, you talk about how much it helped you, but you really did help so many people and will continue to. And just, I feel like people relating to you is so, you never want to feel alone. So I'm sure that was nice to hear all those stories. But even in some of the details that you gave, I feel like you kind of subconsciously like taught people how to deal with sexual assault and this type of situation.
True, yeah.
Like when you were talking about you were going to talk with the Title IX office, you had that like 25-page document of all the details and the receipts and the evidence and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that tells a young person listening, like, okay, I need to document everything. It might be a good idea to have, you know, so
True.
little
Yeah,
details that I think can really help people that you just from the actions and the steps you took.
definitely. Yeah. And even if they don't end up reporting, just to be able to then share their story one day and remember um, what happened, because it is hard to remember everything. Like, people ask me how do you remember everything? Like, the podcast has so much detail, and it's because summer 2018, even before that, honestly, I just started writing everything down, like bullet points and bullet points and bullet points, just like random thoughts. Like, I'd be walking around campus and I'd remember something and I would write it down. And that really helped. So yeah, definitely.
And I mean, I know you said that the feedback has been really great. Was there anything that surprised you that you weren't expecting hearing from a listener?
I don't know if I was ever well, I think I was surprised about the hate comments. Like, I knew there was going to be hate. Actually, no, I wasn't even surprised by them. I thought that they were going to be worse, is what I'm saying. Like, all the haters, like, they were just classic comments, you know, like, I could have written them myself. So it was more kind of just like laughing at them. But in terms of the positive comments, I don't think I was surprised when people would tell me like how much they relate, and like a few people even reached out and said that like this gave them closure about their rape experience. I think maybe I was a bit surprised with that, not because I don't think it has that's not possible for this podcast to give people closure about that, but just like I was just so happy because that's exactly what I would want it to do, and to be able to do that is really special.
That's so amazing. And you know, I think because your podcast is so honest and so much of like Lydia said, giving those details that aren't comfortable to share a lot of times, it really makes it so that like I don't think anybody could listen to your podcast and be like, well, you know, find some reason to rationalize the behavior that was done against you. I feel like you address this in the podcast, but a lot of times in Greek life or even outside, people are going to try and rationalize sexual assault behavior that, you know, their friend did or their frat brother did. And you giving all those details and being so open and honest about every single thing and every single step, there is no rationalization. There should never be a rationalization, but there is no way someone could come up. There's no space for it. Exactly.
Totally.
After I listened to, I think, the first episode, I went and wrote a review. And I think that it was either the first or the second that I saw one of the comments that was like maybe giving you like a 1 or 2 stars. And it was somebody from sorority world saying, you know, this is just your experience, but this wasn't my, like, I understand sorority life isn't for everyone. And I just feel like you so addressed that.
Yeah.
The classic,
definitely.
It's not for everyone.
But oh, sorry, go Lucy, but that to me just doesn't make sense. That, like, you were raped. That's not like not for no one's for that. You know what I mean?
It's victim blaming when people say that.
Oh.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's the classic response. Like, the amount of time, I would be a millionaire if I had $1 for every time I've heard Greek life isn't for everyone, or, oh, like my sorority doesn't do that, you know? But that's not the point of this at all. And it's the same argument with, oh, but I've had a great experience with cops, you know? Like, okay, cool, congratulations. A lot of people haven't.
I just don't understand though, like, that saying Greek life isn't for everyone to me has nothing to do with what happened to you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it almost sounds like she's saying like, oh, you know, sexual assault is part of it. Like, that's literally what it sounds like.
Yeah. I know. And for a while, well, not for a while, for like 2 months, I would say, like I believed that, you know, like, oh, Greek life isn't for me, like I'm an outlier, I'm abnormal. Because when you're stuck in that world and like with the power of groupthink, it's easy to believe, oh, Greek life isn't for me. Like, oh, I'm weird.
And I feel like also there has to have been situations where people went through similar experiences to you and stayed in Greek life and didn't get out
Definitely.
because they didn't know how to. And you make that so clear in your podcast that it feels
Right.
like everything. And so it's like, oh, if this guy from this frat that my sorority is friends with, like, if they're gonna try and protect him, like, who is
Right.
protecting me, and how do I
No
protect
one.
myself, and where do I
Exactly.
go? Like,
Where do you
who do I
go?
turn to?
Literally, there's no option. They don't give you any options. Disaffiliating is not an option. It's ridiculous. It's a cult. Like, genuinely.
In that vein, in your last episode, when you talk about the way that they bring you in and initiate you, that bonding, that like trauma they kind of force on you so that you feel more bonded, that
Yeah.
is literally cult behavior. And I
Yeah.
remember like after I think my freshman year of college, or it was like halfway through, these people I knew who went to school in the South, like this guy came home for Thanksgiving break and after trying to join a frat, and he had like black eyes and stuff. And people were like, oh, well, he was going through pledging at his frat. And the
Hmm.
fact that that is part of the process, that like literally
I
it's
know.
like putting trauma on you to bond you, it is
I know.
culty. It is
It
culty.
is. That's literally. And the fact that our schools so openly enable it and represent it is disgusting. And it's so normalized. And yeah, a big part of the podcast is trying to say this is not normal. This should not be the norm.
And you even, going back to how hard it is to speak out and how you have no one
Wow.
to turn to, you talked about how, your quote unquote friends discouraged you from going to Title IX because it might affect,
Because of the sorority.
that again, it goes back to like, what about the victim in this situation? It's like, what
Right.
about you? Ugh.
Right. That was probably one of the most traumatic parts of the whole story. Like, if the most traumatic. Because it's like, women are supposed to be supporting women, you know? Like, I'm going to Title IX and you're worried about the sorority, you know? And I don't blame her because she was sucked into it. She was being literally like hypnotized, you know, by the groupthink and by the sorority.
But it's interesting, you go all this through all this to become a sisterhood, but where is that
Right.
sisterhood?
Where's the sisterhood?
And another thing
Yeah.
Marco and I know were like really riveted by when you were talking about how the guy that wanted to be like a mediator in your like,
Can we just take a second and talk about that text? Because I didn't like I had the screenshot of the text and I remember being so annoyed by it in the moment. But just looking back at that screenshot and reading it out loud, the entitlement, like what was that gonna look like, him being the mediator? What was that gonna
and just for
Yeah, like with your mediating experience, let you handle this situation. Like, what?
Yeah. And the only reason why he was reaching out was so that he could get back into Greek life.
and this
Which
for
just shows you so much.
this is your rapist or this is his friend?
His friend.
His friend wanted to be a mediator between you and the assailant.
Yeah, so that he can get back into Greek life.
This is where you see why rape cases are are so often side on the on the attacker's side, and that the judges have actually used the excuse of like, well, I want him to have a good life, like he's so young, like I don't want his social life to be affected, his school life, his education. And like this is where it starts with texts like those. That's
Right.
what fucks up our system.
Totally. And if I wasn't like self-aware or something at the time, I maybe I would have had a conversation and been the mediator, then just gotten more mind distortions about, oh, it didn't happen, like maybe they're right, maybe it didn't happen, like maybe this is all in my head, or I don't know what would have happened, but I'm just very happy that I said no to that conversation.
That's right.
Yeah.
You made the right choice.
Yeah.
And also with the way you structured your episodes, was it just in sequential order with what happened? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, definitely in sequential order. I had this outline of the episodes for a while now. Like the story just had such a perfect like climax, resolution, a perfect starting the story of being so into it myself. Like it just was a story. Like it's like someone wrote it, and I remember even being in it and living it. I would always think to myself, like, this is a fucking story. Like this is a reality show or something like that. I always knew that this had potential to be something.
And in that last episode, at the end, when you thank all of the people who've helped you, and it was kind of then that it dawned on me, especially it being the last episode, where I was like, holy shit, this was so much work, like that, producing a podcast that is narrative based, where you have to set up all the, Lucy, you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you so much. Like that, like this is literally my baby. Yeah, it's so much work. Yeah, and getting just all the ambient sounds and distinct sounds. Like it's a whole shenanigan,
But that added like a whole layer to it, like with the
Totally.
footsteps and the laughing. It chills.
Totally. I love it. Like I want to keep using this format of storytelling because it's a really powerful format, I think, because you really have the listener with you and just like speaking in present tense.
And I feel like like Margot said, it's narrative based, so you had to make sure that you were like very strategic with what you said. It's not conversational. This is
totally
story.
Totally. Also being aware of the listeners and putting foreshadowing in, like using storytelling elements, like me saying in episode 5, like I was so excited that I could be friends with my sorority sisters after having disaffiliated, like a foreshadowing element, because then in 20 minutes shit goes down.
Yeah.
Like every sentence was definitely very thought out.
I wondered if during the process of releasing the episodes, because they were staggered in their release, if you ever went in and changed something based on like the reaction you were getting, or remembering something else, or thinking you should add something new.
Yeah. I mean, the first 3 episodes were made before they were released, but then I started working on the next ones kind of as the time came. Like I had the script and stuff, but I started releasing it. Started creating it like in the in-between times. I think that I definitely learned throughout the process of just making sure I'm speaking in present tense as much as I can. um, and just learning like what works, what doesn't. One thing that the series didn't have was the call to action. At the end, I do a whole call to action of the finale, and originally there was no call to action. And what inspired this was definitely seeing the Abolish Greek Life pages on Instagram. They have lots of information about abolishing Greek life, and there's certain schools that students are trying to abolish Greek life. At University of Maryland, they don't have it yet where I went to school. That's something that I would definitely like to see. But yeah, the call to action was something that was pretty last minute. But I think because I knew I wanted to have a call to action, but I always felt like what's it gonna be? Like I always wanted to abolish Greek life, but it just didn't seem possible. But then to see that these students are riling up other students to abolish Greek life at their schools, it gave me hope. And seeing their calls to action gave me a clear call to action for the end of the podcast.
That goes back to it being important for people to speak up, because you wouldn't have known there's
Yeah,
something feel that way to abolish.
exactly. I definitely have always known that this is not a system that can be reformed.
Yeah.
Because it's a system that's working exactly how it's meant to work.
Like there's nothing wrong with it technically right now.
Totally. There's nothing wrong with it. Like the founders, if they saw it right now, they'd be like, chef's kiss.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so insane that, you think about the amount of stuff that has been reported to the schools.
Right.
For all of the stuff that's been reported, I'm sure there's even more that hasn't been. But the school is very much aware of what's going on.
Very aware. They know, they knew everything that was going to be said in the podcast before the podcast was released. They knew. Like, other people have reported, I'm sure. They get anonymous tips. They know.
They know.
They know very well, but they get lots of money from it. They get money from alumni. It's a social norm. I don't know. Powerful people are in it. I don't know why it hasn't been abolished yet. But then again, I do know, because money.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, in the last episode, I did mention them, so I don't think they're gonna make a statement unless it really blows up. But I would be interested to hear what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that it's just mind-boggling that it's the students who have to demand that these organizations be disaffiliated with the university, and abolished overall. But I feel like a first step would be the university being like, no,
Right.
we're not gonna support this group. You're gonna have to exist outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's students who are calling for this, when the university knows all this shit that goes down, and people do talk about it, and
it's students also being the ones who are supposed to reform it, like diversity chair meetings, and I don't know, different people in the sorority try and reform it. But how are you going to put that in the hands of 18, 19-year-olds to reform a system that's systemically fucked up? It just doesn't make sense.
And oftentimes it tends to lay on the shoulders of people like you that are survivors that have to fight for it, rather than people that just are fighting for it because it's the right thing to do.
Exactly. And it oftentimes lies in the hands of people of color or LGBTQ plus members, because they experience the discrimination, and so they're like, oh, I want to make this a better place for the people that come after me, because they probably don't think that abolishing is even possible or have heard of anything like it. So they're then have to put in the hours and hours of work to try and reform a system that can't be reformed. Yeah.
It all goes back to, I think, isolating the victims and making them feel like
Yeah.
powerless. And you even talked about that, I think, in the last episode when and this just kind of was one of like the biggest gut punches for me to hear you say, talking about how like you had no faith in an honest investigation. You didn't expect
No.
sisters to, or at that point your ex-sisters to be
Right.
people in the investigation. And that's like, wow, you even knew that.
Right.
That is crazy.
Exactly. Like even in an investigation, I expected them to have loyalty to the sorority rather than to the truth.
We definitely wanted to ask you if anyone involved in the story reached out to you.
Yeah. Um the woman who was my friend, who was upset that I was going to Title IX, reached out to me saying that she was just excited to listen to the story. She hadn't listened yet, and I was planning on reaching out to her anyway to let her know that I will be including what happened between us, and I will be reading some of our text messages. But I was kind of putting it off because I was just really anxious about it because I didn't know what her reaction would be. But when she messaged me that she was excited to listen, I was just like, okay, I gotta put my big girl pants on and just tell her. And I ended up telling her, and she sent me a voice message back, just like being completely supportive, um, telling me that she's really proud of me, and she's all for it. Yeah. So that was really nice. Other than that, no one specific in the story has reached out to me.
Something that's so clear in the podcast, and that I think a lot of people have felt depending where they go to school. I know I went to skate school, so is that desire, that flashiness, that pull in of Greek life, this idea that you're gonna have like all of these friends, you're gonna be able to go party, like it's like this cool club, exclusive club that you get to be a part of. And I think very much it's not, wanting to be in a sorority or a frat doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're like a shallow person or whatever. It doesn't mean any of that. But I think the groupthink within the Greek life transforms what your values are and what you want and what you are looking for in friendship. And so it's not like if anybody wants to join Greek life, that doesn't make you bad. That makes you
it just means you want friends.
Exactly.
And it's appealing. It looks appealing, and it's instant gratification, like, oh, I'm so lonely right now, I'm a freshman, I don't have a community, but if I join this group tomorrow, I'm gonna have 100 new friends. That's what they make it seem like, and that's what it feels like it doesn't feel like genuine friendship, but it feels like you have now this army like to support you and have your back, when in reality no one has your back.
You talk about how it was hard, especially in the year after you disaffiliated, to be friends with people who were still in Greek life, knowing your story, and you talk about having kind of overcome that, and now just saying that like it's not something you can control, and it doesn't mean that they're mean-spirited in that way. And I like, that was a moment I felt like I truly identified with, because I, trying to step into your shoes, as you do in the podcast, make the listeners step into your shoes, and knowing everything that happened to you, and then knowing, like, meeting people who still are upholding the system that broke you. It must have been really, really difficult to get past that, and to find.
It was really hard. For a while. Like, if I saw someone in Greek life, like I would just kind of like write them off, like I just felt like betrayed by everyone, even if I had never met them before in my life, but they were wearing like a Greek life shirt. I just felt betrayed. And it was really hard to be on campus. Luckily, the performing arts building didn't have that many people in Greek life, but just going to all my gen ed classes was really hard for me. I just always felt like kind of alienated and upset at everyone. Like I wanted to leave the school. Like I wasn't like actually planning on that, but like campus was not a safe space for me because of people in Greek life. And I didn't really feel that coming back, like in my last semester, as I talk about in the podcast, like I gained that awareness that it's not the individual, like it, Greek life can sink its claws into anyone. And that doesn't make them a bad person. But, like it just still is sad that people are still so sucked in. Like I completely understand it, but it's still sad.
Because even if you see somebody who's having like an amazing time in Greek life, like you still know what the organization represents, and that there are other people who are probably having really horrible times and the system is not doing anything to help them.
Exactly. And it's just sad to see freshmen rushing and but what I realized, like you can tell them anything you want, but if they want to do it, they're still going to do it, and you just kind of need to let go at that point and wish them luck.
But again, that's why it's important that you're doing what you're doing with the podcast, because hopefully as time goes on, that's going to influence more people to make the right decision.
Totally.
And think twice about joining in the first place. So you are helping.
Right. That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, because I think there's a difference between telling someone like, oh, don't rush Greek life, like it's sexist, it's racist, blah, 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 and like just like listing everything that's wrong about it, versus listening to the podcast and being able to kind of experience the rush and the crash yourself.
The rush of rush, I feel like, is a thing.
Yeah, that's why the first episode is called Rush because of Rush, but originally it was called Dopamine Rush because it's a total dopamine rush. Like it's like, oh my god, they like me, they think I'm pretty, they want me in their sorority. Okay.
It really is an ego check, I feel like.
It is. Oh, my ego was living. My ego was living. Yeah, I was giving myself a pat on the back every night, which is sad. Like I didn't do anything.
I wonder, I know the long-term goal is abolishing Greek life. I hear that. But in the short term, I was thinking, what if, starting next rush cycle or that season, like at least maybe at Maryland, what if that specific sorority that you were in has some sort of conversation? I know you had meetings, right? There were regular meetings.
Like chapter
meetings, that kind of, at the sorority you were in and other sororities on campus, if that becomes, your podcast becomes a topic that they discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I think inevitably it will, just because I think people are going to ask about it. And I think that would be great. I'm just worried that they're just going to try and save face, and just be like, oh, like that doesn't happen anymore. Like shut the fuck up, it does.
That was so long ago. It was like 2 years ago.
Like they've all graduated, but like it's not the individual, it's the system. But I do think it should be a topic of conversation. But I think ideally I would want like people outside the rush houses like handing out flyers, being like, go listen to this podcast. Like I think before abolishing Greek life, I think less people need to stop joining.
I mean, there's plenty of flyers all around campus. That could be another one.
Exactly.
I will gladly help hand them out.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah. If I lived in Maryland, maybe I would like have like a microphone, like brush.
Don't do it!
Which episode was the scariest one to release? Was there
Yeah.
one that felt more like, oh, I have anxiety about this, than the others?
Yeah. I would say the last episode, the finale, just because I think with each episode it becomes more vulnerable, and I think that that was definitely the most vulnerable episode. Also, just because it's a finale, there's more pressure to make it finale worthy, and definitely part of me was a little bit worried that the listeners were expecting me to go to court or something, or I don't know, and when that's not what happened. But I think that I'm still really happy with how the finale turned out, and I think that it ended up being finale worthy. That's the first episode that like I cry in, and that's definitely hard to share with the world. The moment of telling your parents you were raped, that's like, for a while I didn't know if I was going to include that, just because that is something really personal.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I knew it was important, because it is like a big part of dealing with that. And I think that it's, if I was a listener and I had dealt with something similar, just hearing my discomfort and just my thoughts about it, and also talking about how like I didn't want to label it as rape for a while, like sexual assault felt more comfortable. I think that a lot of people would relate to that, and it would resonate with a lot of people. So at the end of the day, I just decided, like, if I'm gonna, like, I've already said so much, I might as well just say this as well.
And I think you helped some other listeners that maybe were hesitant to tell their parents, knowing that your parents are supportive is important.
Yeah. To keep the podcast going, I want to keep it up for as long as possible, but it does cost money to have it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So just getting some Snap merch. Our Shopify store is up for another few days, and then you can find the merch on our Instagram. You can order it directly from me. We have Snapped underwear and Snapped stickers, and if you don't want any merch, you can also just Venmo at Snap the Podcast. Any amount is appreciated. I'm trying to keep this podcast up forever. Also, if you know any podcast networks, send them snaps, because I'm trying to do a season 2.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And I just want to say too, before we move on to our next segment, like, it goes without saying, Lucy, but Margot and I are very, very proud of you. We think it's so brave what you've done, and that I think what sets you apart, not only speaking out and doing what you did by disaffiliating, but you're going beyond that extra step and actually helping to dismantle the system rather than just hoping it gets better. So that's really amazing work. So thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yes. So let's move on to our next segment and get a little ranting out. You all know what it is.
Yes.
Savage seconds. Okay, I know masks are necessary right now. I get it. I'm here with you. But the thing is, I was in the market and I said, excuse me, to someone, and they didn't think I said it. And it was this whole thing. It was like a little altercation. I got nervous. But the thing is, these masks, as necessary as they are, you either risk screaming someone that you're trying to say, excuse me, so then they hear you, or, fuck, I'm out of time. But masks are annoying in terms of talking.
Okay, so every single morning, it's the weekend now, so you don't hear, but every single morning at 7 a.m., the construction outside my house wakes me up, and it's not just like, it's like, and it goes on throughout the entire day. So I can't record the podcast during the day. I only can record it at night, but I like to get my work done during the day, so that sucks.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to cut you off, Lucy, because we messed up with timing. But listen, I've been running so much lately, and it never gets any easier, and it never gets fun. And I'm trying to enjoy running, but I'm not. And I want to know when it gets easier. Where is my runner's high?
Hey,
Perfect.
we did it, even with the timing. I was losing time. Lucy was losing time.
I was losing time.
20 seconds is different than 30 seconds, I must admit.
It's so different. On to our new segment of Moving Forward, where we discuss important issues of today and what people can do to help.
Quick shout out to Michelle Obama, forever former First Lady. And she released a podcast of her own on Spotify exclusively. It's called the Michelle Obama Podcast. And there's been about 3 episodes so far, but it's great. She had, of course, her husband on as the first guest, but she talks about things that even our generation can relate to. It's engaging, it's intimate, and she's been very, very engaging and interesting on it. So I recommend everyone listen to that. I just liked one quick quote that she said from it was, "A selfless life is the better way to live. It's more fun." And that was her advice to young people. I thought that was so everyone go listen.
Lucy, I wanted to give you some space here to talk about
Yes.
what people can actively do to help
Yes.
make it so nobody has to go through what you went
Totally.
through again.
Totally. Yeah, so I think step number 1 is changing the groupthink. If you see someone who's in Greek life, or if you see someone who is considering Russian Greek life or is Russian Greek life, question them on it. Don't just be like, oh, cool, like what chapter, like definitely get into a conversation, send them my podcast, ask them like, oh, like, are you aware of all the systemic issues within Greek life, and like really question why they're joining. And don't, like, I'm not saying alienate them or in any way, but don't treat it like it's okay, starting there and going to the Abolish Greek Life accounts and signing their petitions to abolish Greek life at various schools. If you go to a university and they don't have an account, being the one to create that account where people can then submit stories and spread the word. Another thing that you can do is email or call your school and let them know personally that you're not okay with Greek life being on campus, and just starting it all by using your voice, I think, is the most powerful thing that we can do right now, and just changing the groupthink.
If you haven't been following what's happening with the U.S. Postal Service, it is going to be extremely important for this next election, because essentially the U.S. Postal Service is not receiving any funding. They are struggling. The U.S. Postal Service is at risk of going under. And how does this affect our coming election? Well, because of coronavirus, a lot of people are going to send mail-in ballots. The issue is, with the U.S. Postal Service going under, those ballots might not be received in time. In fact, the U.S. Postal Service sent notices to 46 states and Washington, D.C., warning that they might not be able to deliver mail-in ballots in time to be counted in the November elections because of the delay. They are trying to ask for up to 3 extra days after Election Day to be able to receive those mail-in ballots. It is really a big problem that is coming our way. Figure out how you're going to vote and ensure that you are getting your mail-in ballots in on time. If you can go in person, if it's like safe enough for you to be able to do that with your mask and socially distance, please do, because unless the U.S. Postal Service gets more funding, this is going to be a big issue.
All right, well, you know how we end these things with our quotes of the day. Lucy, I would like you to go first.
Yes. So my quote of the day is from Midnight Sky by Miley Cyrus. The quote is,
Queen, your queen. You love her.
my queen, my queen. I was born to run. I don't belong to anyone. And I just really like that quote. I just want to be my own person. I don't want to belong to anyone. I don't belong to anyone. I don't not want to, I don't. And just tying it back to the podcast, at the end of the day, I did this for me. Like, while I'm so happy that it's helping other people and I'm so, like, it does have other purposes, the main purpose was for me, That's what I wanted to do. That was my healing process. And I was born to run. I don't belong to anyone.
Ooh, so good.
Yeah, I love it.
My quote is unknown, of course. But it says, before you give up, think about why you held on so long. And I think that could be applied to Lucy, your podcast, and just people that might be afraid to speak up in the future. It's like,
right.
Just do
Totally.
it. Help people out.
Totally.
Margot, what do you have for us?
My quote is, there are all different survivors of different traumas. Not everyone chooses to disclose their experiences to the whole world either. That's okay. For those that do share, however, there's comfort in knowing you're not alone in how you feel. There's also power. And that is from Allison Sari. And I feel like that
Beautiful.
applies to Lucy's podcast, to the people who have reached out to you, Lucy,
Totally.
and have told their own experiences. If you share, amazing. There is so much power in it. And if you don't share, that is totally okay too. Just know that you're not alone, and we're in this together, and we're going to fight the fucking system.
Hell yeah.
Enough said.
Hell yeah.
Thank you, Lucy, again so much.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me back on.
If you guys haven't checked out Lucy's podcast yet, please do. It is called Snap the Podcast. We will be linking it below. Thank you so much, Lucy, for coming on. We love having you. And we will see everyone in 2 weeks.
And that's the show. Stalk us on Instagram at popoffsis.podcast and check out our Pop Off Sis YouTube channel.
We'll see you next time. Pop off,